Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
I'm with Dr. Hamdullah Mohib, the very young National Security Advisor of Afghanistan. He's only 35 years old, which is remarkable, I think, perhaps a record of sorts anywhere in the world, but remarkable for a very ancient but remarkably resilient country like yours. Dr. Mohib, welcome to ThePrint.
Thank you. Well, let me remind you that I was born in a war. So we have been, we are a country that have been in conflict for a long time.
Right.
And I think what we're working on now is hopefully going to bear fruit, and that is long-term stability in Afghanistan.
So you're in Delhi. When you say that you're working towards peace and stability, why are you in Delhi?
Well, this is one of our partners, a democracy in the democratic process. Mm-hmm. We see eye to eye with Delhi on terrorism. You know, we don't distinguish between good and bad terrorists. Mm-hmm. We believe in a people's choice to elect their own leaders. This is we have had centuries of partnership, but in the recent years, as two democracies, we understand each other well.
No, but what does that mean when you say that you don't believe in good and bad terrorists? What are you referring to?
Well, there is a tendency by some to see only one, all aspects, because they see one threat to their own country, mm-hmm. And they start to believe or make themselves believe that that is the only bad terrorist. Mm-hmm. That if they were to eliminate that, terrorism would vanish from their country, and the threat to their country would vanish. But I think what we see with Delhi is that strategic vision that it's not good enough that one terrorist group ends its violence and that we eliminate one terrorist group. It's all of that.
So which terrorist groups are you referring to? Are you referring to the Taliban, to the Lashkar-e-Toiba? What are you referring to?
What we have fundamentally agree on is that all of them are a threat mm-hmm. to regional security.
Right.
So I think that's the commonality between our two countries. We see that, and we also have a belief in the democratic process. You know, letting people elect their own leaders. In Afghanistan,
like you are doing in Afghanistan.
We recently had parliamentary elections.
That's right.
And despite all threats, people queued up, stood in long lines.
That was quite amazing. Men, women, young people, older people, everybody queued. That was really remarkable, actually.
Elections in Afghanistan, the people take very seriously. Yeah. And in that, I think, indicates their desire, and as a government, we want to make sure that they are afforded that opportunity to elect their own leaders.
Right. Yeah. So let me ask you, in Delhi these last few days, we've been talking about the US President Donald Trump, who says that, India is building a library in Afghanistan. Is India building a library in Afghanistan? What do you make of his comments?
India, like I said, is a strategic partner for Afghanistan. We've been working on several large projects in the country.
Like a library?
India, like I said, has contributed to both infrastructure projects, mm-hmm. like the Salma Dam, which we renamed and called the Afghan-India Friendship Dam, and at the request of the people. Has been one of the biggest infrastructure project we have implemented in the last 17 years. India's contribution to our parliament building, it's not the building itself, it's what it symbolizes. It's the belief in democracy. It's the belief that the people's representatives must be able to decide on the future of the country.
So do you think Trump is mistaken, or perhaps he doesn't understand the nature of our relationship, or what is he referring to, do you think?
It's never good to comment on any discussions outside. I think what we should focus on is what India and Afghanistan's bilateral cooperation has been,
right.
And where it leads to in the future as two good neighbors and friends. We have a long way to go in bringing stability to all of our regions, and working together to ensure that we have a stable, prosperous Asia.
So what do you want India to do? What did you tell Mr. Ajit Doval?
There's been no specific asks.
Okay.
This has been a strategic dialogue about where we are today and where we are headed and how we can cooperate in this process.
Right. So do you want India perhaps, this has been an old standing conversation, shall we say. Would you like India to give you more defense equipment? Do you want that?
Like I said, no specific asks. Afghanistan has been building its own national security and defense forces since 2014. We have been in the lead. And we have come a long way despite what may seem from outside.
Sure.
We continue to defend all of Afghanistan, and India has been a partner with us, strategic partner.
Would you like much more training?
Like I said, no specific asks. We have no specific asks at this point. It's more of a strategic dialogue that we see. And as a strategic partner, like I said, we see eye to eye on many things.
Okay.
And we continue to cooperate. Okay. It's not these are not visits that would all be about what we ask for, but it's important that we stay in good contact, share our views about where things are headed, because in the end, it's we no longer live in islands.
Right, we're all connected with each other.
Terrorism haunts everybody.
But who is the epicenter of terrorism? Which is the epicenter of terrorism?
I think you know very well which is the epicenter of terrorism. I'm not going to spell it out.
Tell us what you think.
We have had to fight an imposed war. It's unfortunate that we are at the forefront of this. But the aims and objectives of these terrorist groups is not just Afghanistan, right? That is a platform where they can operate, and that's a platform where they can terrorize a people in a country. But the 20 or so terrorist groups that are operating in Afghanistan have other regional objectives. Right?
What are these?
All groups that are related to their own countries, they come to Afghanistan, but their objectives are really related to wherever they come from. So we have ATIM, we have IMU, all the different groups.
You're hesitating to put a country's name. So let me do that. Can I say that Pakistan is the epicenter of terrorism?
Look, the reason we do not want to distinguish between terrorist groups is that is the first mistake everybody makes. Right? If we were to say ATIM is one group that needs to be eliminated, or IMU, for every country they would look at the one,
or the Islamic State, or the Taliban.
It's easy to make that distinction,
right,
and think that is the group that perhaps is a threat. The reality is they're all a threat, and they are interconnected, and they work together. They have similar objectives. This distinction is what we must stop. Is a false, yes.
So let me ask you then about Zalmay Khalilzad, who's the U.S. Special Envoy on Afghanistan. What do you make of his attempted reconciliation with the Taliban?
Look, we're grateful that the United States is taking such a keen interest in peace in Afghanistan.
Right.
But peace is Afghan-led and Afghan-owned. President Ghani has been at the forefront of this effort. He offered unconditional talks to the Taliban. By unconditional talks, we do not mean the peace will be unconditional. Of course, that would have to be negotiated and approved by the Afghan people, but we're ready to discuss. We have offered them ceasefire, one successful, one unsuccessful one, and we are also preparing for a possible ceasefire in the future. If there is going to be peace, let me conclude. If there is going to be peace, it has to be Afghan-owned and Afghan-led.
But does that mean, Dr. Mohib, that Zalmay Khalilzad, so there are reports that he wants Pakistan to play a primary role in this reconciliation process and not India, and India plays a secondary role. What do you say to that?
It's important that we do not make it about countries, and that we do not. It's about Afghanistan.
But no, what
the
is
Afghan people
your
want
response
peace
to reports that Zalmay Khalilzad wants Pakistan to play a primary role in the reconciliation?
Look, we must recognize that there is a lot of disinformation, in this space. Peace talks are a complicated matter. Okay. And a lot of discussions happen behind closed doors, so it gives way for rumors, for conspiracy theories. The reality is not for anybody to play a small or a big role. What is important here is whether Afghanistan will have peace, whether we will have stability, long-term peace and stability, not short-term objectives. And for that, the Afghan government has been in the lead and will continue to be in the lead. There is no alternative to the Afghan government, and there is, if anybody would like to bring stability to Afghanistan,
including
it would
India,
have to be.
So that's my last question. Including India, do you want India to play a role in the reconciliation?
India has been a good partner. It has always insisted and continues to support the Afghan government's efforts and objectives there. Okay. And like I said, as a strategic partner, that has been a part of our discussion on this visit. We want to ensure that India continues to remain engaged in Afghanistan, and that we, together as two good neighbors, work for regional security. India is a rising power, and it's important that it starts to see itself in that big role.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohib. Welcome to India and welcome back. Keep coming again. This is Jyoti Balhotra for ThePrint. Keep watching our YouTube channel. It's alive and buzzing.